From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where the men are men, the women are women, and the sheep still walk a little bit funny. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Here is your Decline of Western Civilization News Roundup for the first week of October in the year 2023. Dateline, Oxford, England, United Kingdom, Monday, 2 October. And yes, I probably should preface this one by saying that on a show called The Blast Radius, stories about explosions always get pride of place in the news roundup. But having said that, witnesses reported a huge fireball Monday night after an apparent explosion at a local power generating facility in Oxford. And I know you're thinking this is one of those cases where Occam's razor should govern, because since by now we are all habituated to thinking, okay, strange explosion, power plant, well, obviously it's climate cult eco-loony terrorist types, right? It's as obvious as some dumb kid gluing himself to a tennis court, for God's sake. But it turns out, strangely enough, the climate cultists are off the hook this time, because in the actual event, the power plant was struck by lightning, which, if there was a dirtbag eco-loony climate cultist here with us, he might say, quote, "You know, man, maybe this is just Gaia, the Earth Mother, committing her own act of eco-terrorism, man. Maybe this is her saying, you know, you guys, like, you got to fix that climate crisis, man, because science," unquote. Dateline, Washington, Tuesday, 3 October, in a development that literally no one could have seen coming. Representative Henry Cuellar, Democrat of Texas, was carjacked at gunpoint by mostly peaceful criminals outside his mostly peaceful apartment complex in our nation's mostly peaceful capital city, Washington, D.C. And by mostly peaceful, we mean, hey, on nearly every day of the year, a sitting congressman is not robbed at gunpoint outside his apartment building, so give us a little credit here, unquote. For his part, Representative Cuellar explained that he knew exactly what to do in this particular situation because he has a black belt in Kung Fu. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not making that up. The man really did say that, because apparently there is some really fancy technique for saying, "Here are the keys, please God don't hurt me," that you can only learn by gaining a black belt in Kung Fu. But now you know. And as a wise cartoon character once said, knowing is half the battle, unquote. Dateline, London, Wednesday, 4 October. British actor and dangerous domestic extremist Lawrence Fox, already declared an enemy of the state for having political views that cause hurt feelings among the soft, whingy douchebags in the media political establishment. He had his home raided and searched, and he was then duly hauled off to jail this week for the crime of gently implying that people destroying government surveillance cameras might not be the worst thing in the world. And that's all it takes to get raided and hauled off to jail in the United Kingdom, the world's cradle of liberal democracy. Here in the second year of the reign of His Britannic Majesty, King Charles III. And as is so often the case, if you take the same fact pattern and just change the political context a little tiny bit, like say, if you're a person who, I don't know, cheers on BLM and Antifa rioters as they burn down your local city, because dang it, sometimes you just gotta break some stuff and possibly steal some iPhones in order to get social justice. And if you said that on social media every day for several years, well, we know absolutely nothing would ever happen. But take a different version of that same theorem and apply it differently in the form of, well, I think free citizens who live in a free country have the right not to be surveilled by the state. And it's a good and proper thing for social justice that these spy cameras be smashed into atoms. Well, then you get to be just like Lawrence Fox, and you get to have the local bobbies rooting around in your underwear drawer, hauling you off to the pokey and charging you with something called conspiracy to cause malicious damage to government property. And why? Well, because they didn't like your tweet. Just tweet better things and we won't have a problem in the future, Mr. Fox, unquote. Dateline, St. Louis, Thursday, 5 October. A 28-year-old high school English teacher has resigned from her job after it was discovered that she's a digital prostitute, OnlyFans model, in her spare time. Brianna Coppage, who taught 10th grade English at St. Clair High School until being placed on administrative leave 2 weeks ago, said she decided to resign because she didn't want to cause a distraction. And besides, Now she's going to have lots more time to devote to her formerly part-time career of digital prostitution. Sorry, OnlyFans modeling. Reached for comment. The part of your brain that controls your common sense responses said, quote, well, when you're someone who sticks things up your butt on camera for cash and you now seek to make a full-time job out of doing that, I'm not sure I believe you when you say you don't want to be a distraction. Also, you should probably consider running as a Democrat for the Virginia House of Delegates. End quote. Dateline, Washington, Friday, 6 October. The Washington Free Beacon reported this week that Planned Parenthood, at least one New Jersey location and presumably elsewhere, is dispensing cross-sex hormones to any person over age 18 who says they have gender confusion and is willing to go through a 30-minute consultation. The Free Beacon relates the story of a young man they call Fred, diagnosed with severe autism at the age of 4. Then at the age of 17, in December of last year, Fred decides he is a trans woman now. Shortly after his best friend, also a 17-year-old with severe autism, announced that he, too, is now a trans woman. And the parents, well, they did try really hard to be terrible parents, so you can't take that away from them. They promptly took Fred down to the local child transgender clinic. And it says a lot when even those ghoulish Frankensteinian maniacs turn you away. The people who look for any and every reason to feed your kid into the transgender medicine meat grinder, even they said, no, God, we can't start transing this 17-year-old autistic kid just because he said he wants to be a girl. That's crazy. It'll probably pass, maybe come back in a year and then we'll talk. But then Fred turns 18 and his parents go away for the weekend. 30 minutes and one visit to Planned Parenthood later, a nurse practitioner has described him estrogen. So the thing that even the sick, evil bastards at the child transgender clinic refuse to do, Planned Parenthood has absolutely no qualms about it. Planned Parenthood says, yep, here you go, 18-year-old autistic kid. Here is your permanently life-altering course of hormone treatment. And this is called healthcare. End quote. And that's your Decline of Western Civilization News Roundup for the first week of October 2023. I hope it left you feeling lightheaded and slightly out of breath. And now I kick it back over to my distinguished co-host, the hominid with the bominid, the one and only, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where anal retentiveness isn't just a way of life, it's a job. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Here is your Decline of Western Civilization News Roundup for the second week of October in the year 2023 AD. Dateline, Sydney, Monday, 9 October. In a heartwarming testimony to the fact that mass migration brings nothing but cultural enrichment, and if you disagree, let me be the first to say, shut up, racist! Jewish residents of Sydney, Australia, I repeat, Sydney, Australia, were warned to stay home and avoid self-identifying as Jews this week, as supporters of the baby decapitating Palestinian terror group Hamas threw an impromptu street party outside the iconic Sydney Opera House, celebrating the wholesale slaughter of defenseless non-combatants as if they had just won a particularly important goat-fucking contest. Yes, I did just say that. I can say it again if anybody missed it. Reached for comment, Australian Prime Minister and noted woke leftist douchebag Anthony Albanese said, quote, "My Labour government is staunchly committed to ensuring the safety of each and every Jewish Australian. That's why I'm going to propose to Parliament this week that to aid law enforcement in keeping these very vulnerable residents safe from harm, that they should be required to wear some sort of little identifying mark on their clothing, just something so we can know who's a Jew and who isn't. Hey, and calm down now. I'm not talking about yellow stars of David or any crazy shit like that, but maybe, let's say, a pink smiley face or a nice green exclamation point. We're still kicking around ideas at the office. A lot of things we still got a focus group, but we'll keep you posted." End quote. Dateline, State College, Pennsylvania, Tuesday, 10 October. Former NCAA champion swimmer and noted advocate of nudes not playing women's sports, Riley Gaines, is accusing Penn State University of canceling an event that she had scheduled on campus called Real Women's Day. The event in question, which had been planned to include discussions of such bigoted and hate-filled questions as, how come we let big hulking dudes compete in ladies' swimming races, had caused much wailing and gnashing of teeth on the Penn State campus, with some students needing to avail themselves of the services of professional trauma counselors after being confronted with the potential hypothetical possibility of an event being held on campus where someone might ask, how come we let big hulking dudes compete in ladies' swimming races? Reached for comment, the Penn State Supreme Commissar for Truth and Mental Hygiene, Dr. LaQuisha Jefferson Jackson X, said, quote, not allowing this event, it was a very simple call for us, as much as we are very, very committed to fostering an environment of free expression for people of all backgrounds and viewpoints that we agree with. We just can't allow that kind of shocking hatred and vile, evil bigotry to find a platform here at Penn State. Now, I'd love to give you a much longer quote, but I am late for my speaking slot at the Free Palestine March, unquote. Dateline Chicago, Wednesday, 11 October. The Chicago chapter of Black Lives Matter found itself in hot water this week after it tweeted and then deleted a picture of a paraglider with a Palestinian flag and the caption, I stand with Palestine. After many respondents quite reasonably asked why BLM Chicago would want to celebrate innocent concert goers being murdered in cold blood, BLM issued the following statement, quote, yesterday, we sent out messages that we aren't proud of. We stand with Palestine and the people who will do what they must to live free. Our hearts are with the grieving mothers, those rescuing babies from rubble who are in danger of being wiped out completely, end quote. But did they stop there? Did they leave well enough alone? Did they say, we probably shouldn't have done that in the first place, so let's just delete the damn thing, pretend it never happened, and wait for it to just blow over? Nope. Oh no, not our BLM Chicago, baby. Our BLM Chicago decided it would be a good time for a rant about Zionists. Quote, Zionists, we know we hurt your feelings yesterday, and we do sincerely apologize. And y'all are going super low with really basic, boring, not clever racism, Zionism, and violence. And you are just organizing people for us. Are you missing the more you act up, the more followers we get? End quote. So for those fans keeping score at home, BLM Chicago is on the record as saying the backlash toward their ill-advised celebration of Jewish people being slaughtered en masse is the result of a Jewish conspiracy. Dateline London, Thursday, 12 October. Woman-faced minstrel and noted destroyer of venerable American consumer brands, Dylan Mulvaney has been named Woman of the Year by something called Attitude Magazine, which apparently used to be a publication for gays and lesbians, but evidently has changed its mission statement sometime last year to say that they celebrate all expressions of queerness in the whole wide cornucopia of iterations and permutations that the rest of us never, ever, ever get tired of learning about. But here, let's get it straight from the woman-faced minstrel's mouth himself. Here's a quoted passage from the puff piece interview that accompanied this ridiculous horse shit. Quote, some people don't see me as a woman at all. No matter how hard I try or what I wear or what I say or what surgeries I get, I will never reach an acceptable version of womanhood by those hateful people's standards. But as long as I have the queer community that sees me for my truth, I'm going to be okay. And I think if we all just adopt a girl's girl mentality and we say goodbye to the critics, then we'll have a better chance of getting through this because they want us to be in competition with each other. They would love nothing more than to see the L's and the B's turn their backs on the T's. We're all in this together. End quote. Says the cisgender male who started cosplaying as a 12-year-old girl so that he could be internet famous. So stunning, so brave. Dateline Washington, Friday, 13 October. Wisconsin State Representative, complete idiot and Democrat, but I repeat myself, David Considine told his colleagues on the House floor this week that female athletes who are upset about losing to dudes need to stop all their crying and belly aching and just work harder, God damn it. But he's not just saying this for himself. He is just relaying something that he heard from his granddaughter, who I'm sure is totally real and totally said this thing that she is alleged to have said. But here's the quote, and my granddaughter, who is playing college sports, I asked her about this when we had this 2 years ago, and she said, you know what? If a trans woman was competing against me in the sport, then that just means if that person is better than me, I need to work harder, end quote. You hear that, little girls of America? You didn't lose that swimming race to that big hulking dude because he's a big hulking dude. You didn't lose because he's a male swimmer and you're a female swimmer. You didn't lose because he has longer arms, longer legs, and more lung capacity. That's just about enough of those excuses out of you, Missy. We both know you lost to that big hulking dude because that big hulking dude just worked harder than you did. That's your Decline of Western Civilization News Roundup for today, Sunday, 15 October 2023. And now I kick it back to my lovely and distinguished co-host, America's favorite cryptid, your friend and mine, the one and only, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.